الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في العالمين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening and the return of our Imam, please recite the salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
These days are the days of the remembrance of Imam al-Mujtaba Salamullah alayhi, As-Sibt al-Akbar, the oldest grandson of the Holy Prophet, the one who is known as Kareem Ahlul Bayt, the generous of the Ahlul Bayt. Every single one of the Ahlul Bayt is Kareem, is generous. Generosity is a quality that they all have. We read in the Imams have taught us to refer to the Imams by saying وَسَجِيَّتُكُمُ الْكَرَمِ. The quality that has become part of you, something that constantly manifests itself in you, is the quality of generosity. Generosity in karam is where they give without the person deserving, and they give beyond what the norms are. That is what karam is. The karam of the Ahlul Bayt Salamullah alayhim ajma'in is such that when the occurrence and the event of Waq'atul Harra, after the battle of Karbala, there was an event that took place in Medina. There was a war that was fought, a very devastating one. The army of Yazid came, there was an uprising in Medina, the army of Yazid came. For 3 days they looted the city. They killed, they raped, they did a lot of evil in the 3 days. But the army was advised that when you go there's one house you cannot touch, and that is the house of Imam Zainul Abidin Salam. Because of the atrocities in Karbala, this house was not supposed to be touched. Okay, they couldn't afford to disrespect the household of the Holy Prophet any longer. Now they have to show, at least portray, that they have some form of respect for them. So they said, don't touch this. They say Marwan came and asked. Marwan, the one who has committed so many atrocities against Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam al-Mujtaba Salamullah alayhi, and Imam al-Hussein. He's the one that was in Medina, that was trying to encourage the governor of Medina to take Imam Hussein's life when he did not want to pledge allegiance to Yazid that first session. This is Marwan. Okay. He comes and asks if his family can be with the Imam so they can be protected. The Imam did not say, what about your history? He didn't say, you've disrespected us or anything like that. So they're welcome. Come on in. The karam of the Ahlul Bayt is great. But amongst all of them, when one develops and is given a quality, is given a title, is given a laqab, that means this person, this Imam manifested that more than others. So you can imagine what the karam of Imam al-Mujtaba Salamullah alayhi is. So we are remembering Imam al-Mujtaba, and we ask him by the right of his mother, the Lady Fatima Zahra. Let's first of all make these couple of prayers before we get into some of the points that we want to make tonight. This is the month. Another point about this month is we are told whoever wants to go for Hajj, whoever has that want in their heart, which I hope all of us have, this is the month to ask. This is the month. Plenty of the du'as. Keep repeating this line, Allahumma rzuqni hajja baytika al-haram fi aami hada wa fi kulli aam. It's a very, very life-changing spiritual experience that I hope we all get the opportunity to go and perform that. Amen, inshallah. And when we go there, we can't miss out on Medina. We can't miss out on going to the masjid of Rasulullah and visiting the graves of the A'imma in Baqi'. And hopefully we'll have a time where we're able to rebuild the shrines in Jannah al-Baqi', inshallah. So we ask him, by the right of his mother, by the right of his grandfather, by the right of his father, by the right of his brother, and by the right of himself, that he helps us, he does shafa'ah, he intercedes, that we're able to make it to Hajj this year, to also go to Masjid al-Rasul, to inshallah go to Baqi' after the morning prayer, that the Shias line up there, and as soon as the prayer is finished, you see them running towards the graves of Baqi'. Inshallah, we all have that opportunity to go there and whisper those ziyarats, hoping for the day that we're able to say those ziyarats out loud, inshallah. But we're also approaching the night of Qadr. We are approaching Laylatul Qadr. And this is a very, very special night in the month of Ramadan. All of the month is very special throughout the year. This is the month that we've been told it's Shahrullah, the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which tells us the importance of it. But out of this month, one night only, this night of Qadr is better than 1,000 nights. I'll read Surah Al-Qadr with a very, very brief explanation so we can get a better understanding. We have to prepare ourselves. And I'll explain further on that point, inshallah. Recite salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
It says, A'udhu billah minash shaitanir rajim. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. We have revealed this book, the Quran, on the night of Qadr. Why it's called the night of Qadr, hopefully we'll get to that. But a very interesting line, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this type of wording in a few surahs of the Holy Quran. It says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَادْرِ. What do you know, paraphrasing, what do you know the value of Laylatul Qadr? Okay. There's a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be referring to the people, to those like myself, and saying, you don't know what the value of Laylatul Qadr is? And then there's a time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says that you even don't know the value of this night. How would you know this night is so great? Right? This should tell us that this is a very extremely special night. We cannot miss out on this night. Now, what is the importance? First, he says, Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alf shahr, better than 1,000 months. We have another. There's many verses of the Holy Quran that talk about Laylatul Qadr. In Surah Al-Dukhan, which is one of the recommended surahs to recite on those nights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billah minash shaitanir rajim. If I remember the beginning part, I think it's Hamim wal kitab al-mubin inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakah. Okay. We have revealed this book, the clear book, on a night that is Mubarak, or since it's feminine, it says Mubarakah. What does that mean? What does Barakah mean? When we say we want to have the Barakah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Salamullah alayhi, we take that soil, just a pinch of that, and add to the food, or to the water, When we say we have that barakah, or we want to take the food of Sayyid al-Shuhada in Muharram, in Safar, we have programs, we commemorate the Ahlul Bayt, and we take the food as barakah. Even these symbols of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein, these alams that you have here and elsewhere, sometimes we rub our hands against them as barakah. What does that barakah mean? What does barakah mean? Barakah and Mubarak means that something compared to other things has a certain effect. For example, food is supposed to have a certain effect on you. When you eat that food, there are certain nutrients that are supposed to be added to your body. They help out. Okay, they help with your growth, they help with your maintaining your body, they give you energy. Alright? So there's a benefit that you receive from the food, the water that you drink, and the things, the symbols that you have around you, the different objects that you have around you, have a purpose that they serve. Okay. Every night, every day has some good in it for people, for believers and non-believers, for everybody. There's certain good that's in there. But then there are certain objects, certain items, certain foods that have a much greater capacity of providing khair and good to people. Right? That is referred to as mubarak. For example, that food that you're going to be consuming and eating, it's supposed to only cause you to feel full. You don't feel hungry any longer. You have the nutrients. Hopefully it doesn't have too much fat that would give you too much problems or too many other issues. But it has, it's a certain benefit. But when you add that pinch of what you refer to as khaki shifa, the soil of Sayyid al-Shuhada from his grave, from around his grave, Salamullah alayh, instead of just adding that to your body, if that belief is there, if the sincerity is there, Sayyid al-Shuhada can do a lot more than that. It can give you cure of very unknown even illnesses. It has the capacity.
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives capacity. I'll give you the story. It's a very bad example, as some of the brothers would put it. It's a very bad example. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to give an effect to something, He gives it. Have you ever heard of the story of the cow in the Holy Quran? Okay. The story of the cow, the Bani Israel, alright, the Jews, there was a murder that happened. I don't want to take that story too long. It'll take 15 minutes to explain. But very briefly, a murder occurred. Somebody murdered a relative, because they're all related, by the way. Then he blamed it on somebody else. He brought the body in front of another house and he blamed somebody else. So now they're trying to figure out, there's a big dispute, who has murdered this individual? They went to Prophet Musa. They said, can you tell us who actually killed this person? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, okay, you want me to tell you? I'll bring the person back to life and he'll tell you who killed him. Right. How do we do that? He said, kill a cow, take the tail, and make the tail touch the body of the deceased, the man, and I'll bring him to life. And they're like, wait a second, that a cow can do that? Well, that's the way they thought. So they're like, what is this cow? Can you describe us what cow can actually have that type of an effect? So they asked, and 3 verses in the Holy Quran describe what type of features this cow needs to have. Alright? In the end, when they found the cow that had a very yellowish color, something that was very rare, and it hadn't been used very often, but it had been used to there's certain descriptions that have been given in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that. Finally, it came down to only 1 cow in the world, and they had to pay loads of money to get that in order to get what they wanted. But they still didn't get the point. The point wasn't that this cow was something special, that you can take the tail and do that. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do something, He'll do it through any means. If they would have just gotten the most inexpensive cow and killed it and taken the tail and dumped it, it would have had the effect, because God gives the effect. Soil is soil, but because of the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada salamullah alayhi,
Subhanallah.
when the soil goes, I don't know if you know, I mean you should know better than I do, it's not my field, but you guys studied in university, you got degrees, but you know, the earth doesn't remain the same. The dust over it especially doesn't remain the same. It's been close to 1400 years since that event took place. Okay? So dust travels. The dust that you have there now it's very likely that what you get a hold of is not actually what was there during the battlefield. It doesn't matter. This location is something that because of the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein, it has this effect, this barakah. Okay? You take that pinch, it can cure your disease, and it can, and it will. Right? If you want to be like Bani Israel and question it, yeah, it may not have the effect. But if you want to really see it and accept it the way it's given to us, it will have the effect. So this is the meaning of barakah. When it says that something is mubarak. Laylatul Qadr being Mubarak and mean khayrun min al-fishab mean one and the same. Okay? The good, the capacity that each night has to have blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming down, as that is the source of all blessings. They all come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every night, every day has a certain capacity. But the night of Qadr is Mubarak. The capacity that has is far beyond even 1,000 nights. Okay. That's the meaning of being Mubarak. That means it's a very important night. All of this is emphasizing, so we try to kind of get prepared, prepare ourselves, prepare our hearts, we'll do whatever it takes, which inshallah we'll go over some points. And the other thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in regards to that barakah, explaining what capacity of good this is, He says, تَنَزَّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحُ فِيهَا بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ. On this night, the angels, وَالْرُوحُ, there's a difference of opinion on what the ruh exactly means. They kind of say it's the top angel. Some at least interpret it as that. So in a sense, regular angels, and then the top angel, Ar-Ruh, they descend بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِمْ, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مِنْ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ. Alright, this is where we get that idea of Laylatul Qadr, why it's referred to as Laylatul Qadr. Has anybody heard the word taqdeer? I'm sure some of us here have heard the word taqdeer. What is the meaning of taqdeer? Fate is one word that comes to mind. But the word fate, okay, connotates that there is a predestined fate for you that you're going to have. It's meant that you do something. Okay. That's not exactly what we're trying to get to. Taqdeer means that in order for something to take place, in order, for example, for myself to be here, for you to be here, many different things should have happened and must happen before you and I can end up at this center at this time. We need to have the information, for example. There needs to be communication. If the brother hadn't communicated with me, I would probably be somewhere else. Okay, communication needs to be there. The means of transportation for all of us, whether we're coming in from another city or we're traveling from home, you have that. You need to have the health. Okay, you need to be healthy. You need to not be preoccupied with something that you consider more important. Okay, and loads of other things. Sometimes you want to go to a program, something happens. God forbid, for example, an accident happens. Instead of going to the center, a person has to go to the hospital. Okay, that's not under my control. Things could happen. It's not always me. There was a brother that was had a very bad experience, very bad accident. He was driving on his motorbike, and he was following the rules. He wasn't breaking any law, but somebody else broke the law and just knocked into him. He's on a motorbike, and that guy has a car, and there you go. He's just thrown off the bike. He's almost paralyzed in his shoulder, and different things have happened. It's not under his control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls things. I saw a terrible accident right before my eyes. Again, this guy it just turned green. The light just turned green for him. And he was, he started driving, and he was trying to look at something in the glove compartment of the car. So he was distracted a bit. And then this car from the other direction, I don't know if he didn't see the red light or he thought that he could make it, whatever, he just slammed into that other car. And I just saw that guy right in front of my face. I was looking at him, I don't know for what reason, but I was looking at him, and then his neck just popped. I saw him the way this car slammed into him. He was knocked into the passenger seat, and his neck just snapped. I don't know if he lived through it. We're not in control of things. There's a lot of times we're distracted, or even we have our eyes on the road, but things happen. Okay, in order for us to be here, a number of different things should have happened. There's a gradual process of making that happen. Okay, every one of those steps is a taqdeer of that final event. And the final occurrence of it is what is referred to as the qada of that action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِذَا قَضَى أَمْرًا فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. When the time of qada happens or comes, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make something happen, at that point He makes it happen right there. Okay, so there's a gradual process. In our lives, everything happens gradually. We start as babies, then we grow and grow, we become adults. Physically we grow, spiritually hopefully we grow, we don't digress. Okay. All of that is a gradual process. When the Urafa reach their great states, their status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a gradual process there. Purification, it takes time. Sometimes even 50 years, some of the Urafa were 50 before they got any special blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a gradual process. All of these steps that are taken to reach a certain destination, this is referred to as Qadr or taqdeer. Basically, all of those steps, for every year, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down on this night, Laylatul Qadr, with the angels, to the connection between the material world and the non-material world, the Imam of our time. Salamullah alayhi wa ajjalallah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So basically, whatever is going to happen to us in the following year, as we have in hadith, and this word Qadr tells us, and taqdeer and all of that is going to be revealed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be sending it down on that night. That's why we're told to ask for Hajj in this month, because if it's going to be something that we're going to be receiving next year, it has to be decided upon on this night. Recite a salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So, understanding that, whatever is going to happen to us in the following year will be decided upon on this night, makes it very, very important. From a materialistic perspective, from the perspective of our material blessings, if we like to have business going well, if we want to have our lives going well, not to face difficulties, that will be decided on this night. From a spiritual perspective as well, the extent of which we're going to be able to progress, or God forbid, regress, is going to be decided upon on this night. What we do is going to be very important. But even in preparing for this, we see that there's a gradual process. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a gradual process of preparation for this night. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put it in the month of Ramadan. Out of all the months of the year, He made fasting an obligation in the month of Ramadan. What fasting does is that it helps purify us. He wants us to take this. It says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Maybe. It's an extra boost from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that maybe we are able to develop this. We're able to have our sins forgiven and develop this quality of taqwa in us. Okay. So we start like that from the beginning of the month. Then, as we get closer to that night, Laylatul Qadr is only one night. It's not 3 nights. Alright? But we're told that it may be, intentionally, the Ahlul Bayt have not told us exactly what night it is. We can see that very clearly. They've said, stay up on the night of the 19th. There's certain worships that you need to do that. Right. On the night of the 21st, there's certain worships that you need to do that. Spend that night also awake. Don't go to sleep. And then on the night of the 23rd, then there's more actions, there's more a'mal that we're supposed to do. There's a gradual process of building that up. So what we want to do, hopefully, with the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is try to make this Laylatul Qadr for us a Laylatul Qadr that is not going to be like the previous ones. We want to do something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showers His mercy on us beyond what previously we have received. It's a very special night. Some of the Urafa, the spiritual guides, those who've been able to progress, and I hope by mentioning stories of the Urafa, we're able to remove ourselves from the material world a bit. Brothers and sisters, there are things in this world that are far beyond and above the material world. The material world is referred to as ad-dunya. Okay, you know what the meaning of dunya is? Ad-dunya, when you have that alif lam on it especially, it means the lowest. Okay. The lowest. The material world is the lowest realm of existence out of God's creation. If our desires, if what we're working for, if what we spend our life on, for the most part, or even half of it is for the material world, we've lost the plot. The material world is an interesting hadith from the Ahlul Bayt. They quote the Prophet Jesus, ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salam. He says, I'm surprised of the people because God has said, in this world, in the material world, I guarantee your sustenance. The verses of the Holy Quran tell us, and Hadith as well, you can't even run away from your sustenance. Okay? God will bring it to your door. Don't worry about it. God will bring it. Not that we don't work. That's a misunderstanding of it. No. But even that work is for God, not for the money. God's going to give us that money. Okay. He says, I'm surprised. God has said, I will provide sustenance for you. Guaranteed. It's just that you're either going to make it halal or haram. Sometimes we're a little impatient for that rizq and sustenance. And because of that, we make something that would have come our way. In a halal way, we made it haram. The companion of Amir al-Mu'minin sallallahu alayhi, he stole, the companion was given the task of taking care of the horse of Amir al-Mu'minin. He was impatient. He didn't know if he's going to get anything out of this or not. He stole the mouthpiece and he took it and sold it for 2 dinars. And then when Amir al-Mu'minin came back, he had to go buy another one. So he went and bought it for 2 dinars, another companion of Amir al-Mu'minin. And interestingly, the one who he bought it from was actually the guy who had stolen it. In other words, he bought his own mouthpiece again. Right? For 2 dinars. When the companion told him who he bought this from, Amir al-Mu'minin said, Subhanallah, I was going to pay him 2 dinars. I was going to pay him 2 dinars. God was going to give him 2 dinars anyway. But he could either make it haram or halal. Don't be impatient. The verse says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. I will provide you with sustenance. Don't go through haram means. Just be a little patient, a little bit, and I'll provide for you. So he says, the Prophet Jesus says, that I'm surprised people in this world, although God has told them that I guarantee your sustenance, they're constantly worried about the sustenance of this dunya. But for the hereafter, God has said, I will not give you a penny unless you work for it, and we're not worried about that. We don't care. Maybe once a week, once a month. Ramadan comes. Some of the Ramadan time Muslims or Muharram Muslims. Only. God forbid if we are some of them. It's good. Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi. Some of the more religious, sometimes we get a little arrogant. Okay. And we see people that we don't think they are as religious as we are. Okay. We give ourselves the right to say, they're not welcome to the masjid, for example. So sometimes people would say, what are these people doing here? They come only once a year. They take off their shirts. They want to show their muscles, for example, for guys. They want to beat their chest, but they're showing their muscles. Yeah, a big guy. It's not really about the zanjir or the beating of the chest, the matam. It's really... Well, it's unfortunate that we think... There are some people that maybe they have that in mind as well. Hopefully not. But anyway... So many people have come for these types of reasons even, but they've come to the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada Salamullah alayhi, and Safinatun Najat has saved them. Subhanallah. Imam Hussein saved. So, this is the barakah. It's good, let them come, it's good. We invite everybody to come. Hopefully the imams, which are the manifestations of divine mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides people through them, inshallah. So, we have to go above and beyond this material world. Try to look at things that are much, much, much more profound. The Urafa did not even, because they had seen, they felt the joy of the non-material world. And compared to that, this dunya is really a dunya. It is the lowest. It's so insignificant. I remember the story of Allama Tabatabai, and Allah bless his soul, one of the true Urafa, one of those who was able to reach very high ranks of spirituality, true spirituality. Unfortunately, there's a lot of phony ones out there. But similar to his teacher, towards the end of his life, he became very, extremely poor. Very, very poor. Alright. To the extent that his student, Ramadhan says, I saw him one day, coming back from Tehran, I saw him sitting in a roundabout at the entrance of Qom. He's just sitting there. And I felt really bad. What's my teacher sitting here out in the middle of nowhere? So I went up to him, said salam, respected him. What are you doing here? He's in a very simple, very easy way. Just told him I didn't have money to go, so I'm just sitting here. He did not have enough money to pay for a cab to go home. Zero, nothing in his pocket. But very calm, very easy, no worries, nothing else. And if we don't have at the very least, a few $1,000s in our bank account, then we're very, very worried. Okay, very worried. But there's things that they have their hearts attached to that this is nothing. They don't really care for. So let's try to prepare ourselves on the night of Qadr, Laylatul Qadr. We can progress spiritually, because that's the night again that the Urafa are able to progress much, much more than any other night. As we said, this is the night of Laylatul Mubarakah. So how do we do that? What are we going to prepare ourselves with? Inshallah. Besides salawat, please. One of the things that we do on Laylatul Qadr, and we're told to do, are the a'mal. Okay. The a'mal that we're supposed to do. On some of the nights you have ziyarat of Imam Hussein. On some nights you have ghusl. On all three of them, I believe, we have ghusl. On some of those nights you have 2 ghusls. Then you have dua jawshan kabir. You have the other dua that you put the Quran in front of you and also on top of your head. One thing, and we have recitation of the Quran as well. One thing that is there that we've been mentioned to, and they have mentioned for us to do, is dua, supplication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Much of the a'mal are dua. In fact, one of the a'mal that we are very used to, and hopefully we'll get to repeat that on our own, because we don't necessarily need to do everything as part of a group, meaning that everything is recited on a mic and everybody hears. No, there's a lot of things that we can do on our own, even if we're at the center, which is a good idea, to get together for dua. When you get together for dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at everybody. If you have only a few people that were able to make that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with His grace and mercy, He responds to all of that crowd because of those couple of people and those few people. So it's a good idea to try to get together. So anyhow, one of the du'as that we can do is the du'a for the health and the coming of our beloved Imam. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-hujjat ibn al-Hasan is a du'a that was recited initially on the night of Qadr. Okay. So hopefully we'll do that. But the concept of du'a is something that we have plenty of times mentioned for us to do on those nights. One of the ways we can prepare is to understand this. When we want to do dua, when we want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for things, how do we do this? Okay. What's so important about this? What are the more effective ways of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what we need? And then maybe we can talk about what we need as well a little bit. Besides salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
I'll raise a question, okay, which we'll start to answer, but we'll have to leave the rest of the explanation for the following night. The question that I have is this. Inshallah, we've all recited the Holy Quran. Inshallah, we've been able to recite all of Surah Al-Baqarah, and hopefully we've been able to pay attention to at least some of those verses. And I hope this verse is one of them. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the fast, in the midst of those verses, He mentions this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذا سألك عبادي عني. If my servants, my ibad, ask you about me, فإني قريب, I am close. أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. I respond to the call of the one who calls upon me. وَجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. I respond to that call. The question is this. If this is the case and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to it, He doesn't set any condition there, does He? You don't see any condition. We don't see any condition there. But why is it that there's so many du'as that we make sometimes for our exams? Okay. When we're about to go into an exam, now that's when people remember God. You know, can you remember me in your du'as, your tawassul, nadr, everything? Okay. Or you want to go for an interview. Okay, for example. I've made so many du'as, but I flunked the test. I didn't get the job. So, not the Quran concept.
Like today.
I didn't hear any others though. Anyway, so we don't see that response. So how does this work? Right? How can we have an effective dua that if we make that call, we make that request, it is answered by God? What are we supposed to do? Now before I begin, let me see if I even have time to begin. Was that adhan an accurate time for adhan? That time that I heard?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So it's adhan time. I'm sure you guys are hungry for food, not for words, inshallah. With the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask Him by the right of the Ahlul Bayt that He hastens the return of our Imam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us develop ourselves to become the true companions and soldiers of our beloved Imam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prolong the life of and give good health to all of those who help the cause of Islam, especially the Maraja and especially the leader. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us all of our sins. We ask Him to give all the believers their hajat, cure all the ill, especially those belonging to the audience, brothers and sisters here and elsewhere in the world. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve all the people of the world from the oppressions that they're facing. There are a few individuals that I'd like to read their names to ask for all of the brothers and sisters. This is a very good time for dua. It's time of Maghrib, you're all fasting. There are a few marhumeen of the brother which I forgot, unfortunately, his name.
Ali.
Brother Ali. That has, alhamdulillah, prepared a dastakhan, as you guys call it, of Imam al-Mushtaba, salamullah alayh. So for these marhumeen, and please help me out with the names. I'll try to... Haj Qurban Hussein, son of Mullah Abdul Tayyib, and brother Haji Ali Amir, son of Haj Qurban Hussein, Dr. Zain al-Abidin, son of Sheikh Ismail Bai. Fourth is Haj Musta'in Ali, son of Mustansir Ali, son of Muhammad Ishaq Bai. And the fifth person is Hajia Zaybun Nisa Begum, daughter of Mazhar Hussein. If I read that correctly, and if I didn't, I apologize. For their, inshallah, rahmah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at this time blesses them. And all the other deceased, let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha preceded by a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.